On the far end of the spectrum, you might have your sexual assaults, you might have your threats of violence, you might have physical violence, and anything in between. On those high end, high risk, it's imperative that an investigator approach it from that perspective of impartiality, and critical analysis, looking for the truth. What's their motive? Like the investigator's motive going in needs to be to find the truth as best they can, right, on the balance of probabilities. And without that foundation, usually what happens is, as a result of, and I've read a lot of case law in this area, most of the flawed investigations come right back to the investigator. And where the lawyers, have them on the stand, and it shows that they were biased. It shows that they were what's called a a closed mind. They were closed-minded, right? They didn't pass the open-minded test, so they were, their biases came into play. Their confirmation biases came into play, so they didn't want to examine other evidence that refuted or supported the allegations. So it is a high area of risk for organization. When we talk about risk management, it's a high area of risk for organizations to mitigate right from the get-go by using the right investigator.
Okay. And so you've talked about some of the pitfalls that investigators should avoid. Any others that come to mind?
It's funny. When I train investigators, I spend a whole session on emotional intelligence, and so emotional intelligence includes bias awareness, right? That self-awareness piece. What's your own triggers? If an investigator, as an example, myself having experienced at a very serious high level, corporate level, had experienced some institutional injury, right? If I haven't healed from that, I'm probably not going to be a good investigator, because I'm going to be bringing in that hurt and that pain into my assessment of credibility, my assessment of what's likely happened. I've seen people that work in this domain, and they haven't healed from their own injury, and therefore any allegation is deemed to be true. It's got to be true because this person told me it's true. And secondly, it's the big bad corporation that's piling on to the whereas as an investigator, I have to go in with open to all possibilities, that there's a possibility this could be a false allegation. And we've had those. They're rare. They're not that common, but we've certainly had those. I've investigated those. Or there's a possibility this is a legitimate psychological injury as a result of purposeful psychological harm. We need to be able to be open to the possibilities and start to narrow down to the probabilities based on the evidence. And a lot of that evidence is related to the credibility of the people that you're interviewing.